Today I'm going to introduce you my new full stack tutorial, and I will show you how to create serverless application with Node.js, React and AWS infrastructure. So what will our application do? It's going to be some kind of smart photo album that will allow user to upload bunch of his pictures and analyze them and recognize what's on these pictures. And then we will create our database with all the metadata, and user will be able to find easily all the pictures, for example, of cats or dogs or mountains he uploaded using search or tags. We will use such services as S3 for hosting our files. We will also host our client in S3, and Amazon Cognito for user authorization, and Lambdas for our microservices. I will also show you how to set up CI/CD for your project using GitHub Actions. But the heart of our application will be Amazon Rekognition. That's a service that allows us to use machine learning and computer vision without having any clue about training models and how neural networks work. And this amazing service is available on the AWS free tier with a limitation of 5,000 images. I think that's more than enough for our tutorial. If you don't have AWS account yet, I suggest you create it before we start. So let's start with our backend application. We will use Serverless framework to create it. And the first thing you need to do is to install Serverless globally to your machine. So you just have to run npm install /g and serverless. It will install a framework to your machine globally. I will not run it now because I already have it. After it, you can go to the website, serverless website, and create your account there. As you see, I already got some stuff. I can delete it because I will create new one. So you have to make sure you logged in on a serverless website. You can also do it from here. You can just run serverless login, and it will open dashboard for you. Dashboard is useful because you can control the state of your application, you can see what's going on, you can see some errors and stuff. So now another thing that you will need to do before you start using serverless is to set up your AWS credentials. If you are not sure if you set it up already or not, you can just open this file and see if you have something there. You have to see there's something like default, AWS access key and AWS access key ID. So if you have it, you're fine, you're good. If you don't have it, I'll show you where you can get it. If you go to your AWS console, you have to log in or create account if you don't have it yet. And then you go to your account here in the top right corner, and you can click security credentials, and here you can create access key. If you already have some access keys but you don't remember them, you don't know if you could find them, it's better if you just delete or make it inactive and create a new one. And then when you create a new one, you just add it here in this file. Once you've done it, I think you are good to go. So now let's run a serverless command, and it will ask a few questions. And this magic command will ask you some questions. It will ask you which template you want to use. suggest we use this HTTP API template. It will ask you how you want to call your project. Let's call it Backend or whatever. It will download a template and create a very basic setup for us. And it will ask which org you want to add. If you logged into the dashboard, you will see that you have some kind of an account here, and here is your current org. You can switch it if you have few of them, or just leave the default. Just let's use default one, and it will ask you about the application if you already have some. If not, you will just create a new app, and will ask about the name. Okay, app already exists. Okay, backend 2, and it's ready to be deployed. So if you want to check if everything works fine, you can try to deploy our absolutely blank, empty, basic app. And something is going on. Now you can go to the dashboard and see. So we have here the app that we just created, just deployed. And if you click on it, you can see some information, some logs and stuff. You can also check your AWS console. If you open Lambda, you will see your new Lambda function that was created. It is backend dev hello. The name is coming from this serverless file where we have this hello function, and it's automatically deployed to your AWS. You don't have to do anything. And here, if you open the link, this endpoint, let's open it, you'll see the message and some data that is coming with our request. So that's it. You're ready to write your amazing application in AWS. But first we want to make our developer life easier, and if you want to run your application locally, you can install a Serverless offline plugin. Let's do it. Let's switch to our backend folder. Let's run yarn init just to create a basic package.json file. Everything default, and then yarn add serverless offline. And another thing we need to do is to add it here, plugins, serverless offline. And in our package.json, let's create scripts, and let's create a dev script that will run our command. And let's try yarn dev. And we have the same get with absolutely the same message as on our deployed application. Now let's install one more library that we will need, and this library is AWS SDK. We will use it to interact with AWS services such as S3 and Cognito and DynamoDB and all other services. Now we want to configure our serverless file to make serverless do some stuff for us instead of doing it manually, creating it manually in AWS. So first we need to set up resources that we're gonna use in our application. We need to create our bucket, and instead of typing all the configuration, I will just copy paste it from my existing project. So that's it. You can see resources, photo bucket, type AWS S3 bucket, property, this is bucket name, and we use these variables, and again we need to set the policy to allow this bucket to be readable for public users. So again, type bucket policy, properties, bucket, we're just referring to this name in resources, photo bucket. Then it's just policy, and we allow all users to get objects from this bucket. What this thing will do, if you run serverless deploy, actually let's add it to our package.json. It's not such a long command to add, but still I prefer to have it here, just not to forget. So let's run yarn deploy. Oh, and wait, let's rename this bucket like public photos bucket, because I think I already have one bucket with the same name in my AWS account. So now let's run deploy and see what's happening. Our deploy is done, and what we can see now, if we go to S3, we will see that our backend public photos dev is created, and you can see that serverless resolved these variables, service, that is name of this service, and the stage development dev, it resolved in the name of our bucket. And now it's empty, and it's also not happy, and AWS warns us that it's not safe, but we don't care for now. So you can see, as in such nice declarative way, you can just configure buckets, and then you can deploy it to multiple environments without creating it manually again and again. So here we have our bucket where we will save users' pictures, but to do it we need to grant an access to the role that our application will use. And again, we can do it in a nice declarative way using serverless file. So it will be IAM role, then statements. And here in these statements it will be an array. How do we mark array? It's this dash, and it will be effect allow, and then we need to allow access to our S3 bucket. And now we're gonna decide which actions we will allow. And I suggest we just allow all actions, because we want our application to be able to save files, to delete files, to update files. So it will be the following syntax: S3 and all actions. And we also need to define which resource our application will access. And here we can just go to our S3 bucket, this one, and go to properties, and you see resource name. We can hard code it, or we can do the same way as here, just to replace this part with our dynamic name. So it will be different for different project, different stage. Let's do it this way. And now we actually can try to upload an image to our S3 bucket. Let's go to our handler. So here it is, our default function that serverless framework generated for us. Let's rename it to save photo, and let's import our AWS library. And let's create our S3 bucket client that we will use to connect to the actual bucket. And now we need to get our photo from this event property that is coming to the Lambda function. First, let's just try to console log the event to see what we have there. And let's run our server with yarn dev. It will run on the localhost port 3000 as default one. And here I have some requests already that I tried. So let's just try to wait, is it get or post? It's get, so we can just try to get it. And of course we renamed it. Because we renamed it here in JavaScript file, we call it save photo, we have to rename it here as well. And what else I want to do is to change it from get to post, because we want to post our image to this endpoint. So let's change it here as well in Postman, and let's test. We probably have to restart it. And now we have this content that we're getting. So our body is null, but we want to pass here our file. Let's do it with Postman. We will select form data, and we will send a file here. Let's call it files, because it could be multiple files. And let's find the picture to pass, and let's send it. So you see now our body contains this file, but it looks very ugly and strange, and it doesn't look like something we could use. So this file looks so strange because it's binary data, and our endpoint is not ready to proceed with binary data. We have to do some changes. We have to parse this image with a multipart. You see we have this form data with multipart parser. Let's install it in our terminal. I'll open one more. Yarn add, I will use lambda multipart parser. There are some other libraries that you could use, but this one seemed better to me. And we want to parse our event. Let's do it. Let's add it here first. Const parser. And here we pass our event, and we will also do it here. And what we're gonna get now, I think we have to restart it. Again, we get empty response because we need to await here. And now you see we are getting our files as an array of files and our buffer data. So we get our binary data parsed. Now we can work with it. Now we want to take this data and to save it to S3 bucket. So our files we are getting from this event, and then for every file we will connect to S3 bucket and save it. Let's create a function, a helper function that we will call save file. We will pass the file and then we will save it. Let's try to see what our file has. Let's do it this way. Files for each. Oh, yeah. And we will save file. And now, yeah, let's fix this. And now in our console, when I call this API, in our console we should see every file we have. So file has content and has a file name. Now let's write the actual code for saving the file. First we will need to know a bucket name where we're gonna save our file. How do we get it? We can hard code it, but better if we define it in our environment and can use it as an environment variable and then access it in the code. So let's do that. We do it this way. We are getting our environment and we are just asking it to give us bucket name. And that's not all. If we just run it like that, it's going to be undefined. We need to define it here. Under the provider, we can add environment. And here we will tell that our bucket name is the same as this string. Now let's restart and let's console log it. Trigger the API and you see our bucket name is this one. It's gonna be very easy to actually save the file. We do this using our AWS S3 helper. It's again a synchronous call, so we add await and we use a put object command and pass the following properties: bucket, our bucket name, key will be our file name, and body will be our file content. Just key should be with a capital K. And if you want to return the result, we add promise here. Now let's try it out. We can return the saved file from this function. If we want to return it in our response. Now let's test what we have. I will open our AWS bucket now. So you can see that it's empty. Okay, so you see our bucket is empty now. And we will try to send the file and refresh. Must be an error here. Missing required key. I see that's typo here. Let's try again. I do not see any errors. So we check our bucket. And we see our first photo there. So that was it for the first episode. In the next video, I will show you how not only to upload picture to S3, but also how to detect what is on the picture. So I will show you how to use Amazon Rekognition with our application. So stay tuned, subscribe on my channel, and don't forget to hit the like button.